The Burrows of Berea is a conversational podcast. We study the Bible and we talk about it.
Not all of us are of the same faith, and one of us doesn't actually have a faith.
And that's wonderful. We all love one another, and we're going to continue to talk about these things.
The things we believe in and the things we believe about what we read in the Bible. Not all of these are necessarily true. Some of it is opinion and speculation. Thank you for
listening and speculating with us.
There you go. That was good. Yes.
You are listening to the Burrows of Berea.
Welcome back to the Burrows of Berea. I am Rick Welch, and to my left is Billy Eye Candy Kimsey.
Dancing nougat on your lips like a Charleston shoe. There you go, Rick.
Put my finger, kid. Dancing nougat.
Damn.
Well, I mean, it's a Charleston. You know, that's what it was named after.
Oh,
there
the
you
Charleston.
Go. Yeah, the Charleston.
No.
shoe.
The Charleston Shoe was named after a hotel.
Really?
No. I thought it was, but it was convincing, right?
Yeah, well, it was. Yeah,
My hat's off to you. I believe
yeah.
you.
Well, I mean, it's
What, the Charleston Place Hotel?
Yeah. So you just heard his voice, ladies and gentlemen. Guess who's back?
Back
again.
Represent.
Straight out of Compton, Ralph Hicks is back. Glad to have you back, Ralph.
Hey, it's great to be here.
Behind the glass is Rocket Man, Andy Bishop.
I don't know.
Wow.
I keep trying. I don't know.
Please
That's the Jetsons.
find the music for the wrestler when they come in. Jerry the Annihilator Lewis.
Hello.
Hi. And I'm going to change your name, Sarita. Sarita Edgerton is here. I'm not going to say Sarita
Hi.
the Rita,
That's
even though
okay.
we're going to have you read today.
Sarita Rita.
Sarita the Rita. Yes.
Hey, y'all.
Hey, y'all.
Hey,
She's from South Carolina.
How you doing?
how you doing?
Hey.
How are you doing?
Today is a special episode. It's another Testimonies episode. And it's a good friend of mine, Zach McElrath. Thank you for being here.
Pleasure.
Yeah, he, just to let you guys know, whenever I was into filmmaking, my second film, which I needed a screenplay writer and some help with the story, and got with Zach, and he wrote the whole thing. He took it over and wrote the whole story. It was awesome, though.
Well, you know, you said, hey, I need your help. And so there I was.
Yep, there it was. So, no, I'm so glad that you're here. I don't know if you've listened to any of our episodes or any of the Testimonies episodes or not, but I always ask the guest, my first question is, can you tell me what your earliest memory was of when you heard the name Jesus?
The very first time I ever heard the name Jesus that I can recall, I would say probably roughly around maybe 10.
Oh, okay.
Now, of course, you know, my family background was my parents liked to party.
Mm-hmm.
They had the whole, because this was the 80s and stuff like that, so they had the whole rocking and rolling and getting high and selling drugs and all that stuff. So
Yeah, that was my kind of party
yeah.
back in the day.
This sounds like fun.
But I mean, there was no like religious upbringing at all. I mean, it was, if anything, it was just kind of like you kind of like do your own thing. Nobody really cares. Although there were times where my mom would kind of be like, you know, hey, don't say that or don't do that, but there was really no like oomph behind it because, you know, my mom was a partier, and it's kind of like, how can you really call me out on something whenever you do those exact same things?
Yeah. It always made you feel good when they did something bad, right?
Yeah.
And you'd be like, see if I don't eat all the Oreos tonight.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, Oreos, they're the bomb. So I was pretty stoked about that. But so, yeah, you want like a step-by-step?
Yeah. I was just curious. I always ask that, you know, in the beginning, and I definitely want to hear the salvation story, but you tell me your testimony from start all the way to present.
Okay. Yeah. So like, I basically, just kind of, like I said, I grew up in a home that was, very, just partying and things of that nature. And no one, really had any sort of spiritual influence on me. That is to say that there wasn't people that didn't try to like do stuff, like try to invite me to church, things like that. But as far as like actually understanding what the gospel was, who Jesus was, I didn't really have a firm understanding of that until like really basically in the high school and the college and things of that nature. But I think I made it. I say I was in middle school when I began to I would consider myself an atheist.
Mm-hmm.
That didn't last very long because I just had this inkling that there was something more. So I transitioned from an atheist probably more to agnostic fairly quickly. Just the knowledge of evil and the things that, like things that you see out in the world. Because one of the big things when I was in middle school was Columbine. That happened. I think I was in 8th grade when that happened. Might have been 7th into 8th. I'm not sure exactly. But that was like a huge game changer because that was the first time there'd ever been a school shooting, anything like that. And I think that brought about like an idea that there's needs to be justice in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it kind of like I couldn't justify atheism anymore because there was something that was calling out and saying, hey, that was wrong. That should not have happened. So I transitioned more to like agnosticism. And then I would say probably by my high school, I was kind of flirting with witchcraft and basically kind of like I started out in Gnosticism and then kind of transitioned into like, I'm going to create my own religion because that's what you do to be a successful person.
Yeah.
You just make up your own religion.
A lot of great cults started that way, buddy.
I was going to say, some of the most successful people in history started religions.
Rick's trying.
Listen, Welchianism. We're working on it.
Welchianism.
Yeah, I always welch on a bet.
Yeah, I was looking for it. I was like, what's the joke?
Let's hear the donkey laugh now.
So so moving forward a little bit, I got involved with some friends, and they kind of like spoke into my life as far as like furthering me going down this path of witchcraft and things of that nature and developing my own religion. But as time moved forward, there was a lot of, obviously whenever you're trying to make your own religion, there's kind of like, oh, that doesn't make sense. How can that be true if that's, if this is objectively true, how can I then go about this and hold this view? And so...
How difficult would it be for me to say, can you give me an example of what that is? Would that be hard to do?
Oh, yeah, actually, I was thinking about that on my way here as I was driving here.
Like you didn't walk on water, but you could walk on Jell-O.
Definitely not. But like, for instance, one of the big things in witchcraft and things of that nature is the threefold law: do what you will, yet harm none. And that was kind of like I started like kind of like meditating on that, kind of like the principle, and it's like, well, if you truly like, you would need omniscience basically to know like the ramifications of your actions. It's like, do what you will, but harm none. But it's like, if you actually stop and you think about that, it's like, does this spell that I'm going to try to do, is it actually, I think it's going to benefit that person, but what happens if, because I do this, it actually results in their harm instead of their good?
Mm-hmm.
And so it was like, can I really honestly justify doing anything, magical experience, what have you, and not think about the ramifications of that? And so it really brought me to like this crisis of faith and my wannabe religion that I make up myself. And it's like, I'd have to have omniscience to really be able to do this effectively. And I can't, and I don't have that. And I think that brought me to despair. I remember just like late at night, I mean, I wasn't even, might have been in my early 20s at this point, graduated high school, yada, yada, yada. And then like, I just remember just this deep down despair and thinking, is this really all there is? Is this really it? And like late at night when no one else is around, it's like you think about this, I don't know, just this yearning, this sorrow that just this religion that I was trying to create, that I was trying to make, could not fill this gap. It just could not. And I am so thankful I didn't go through with it. But there was one time I was at kind of like at my lowest stage in life, so to speak, and I thought about suicide. And I thank God every day that I did not have the courage, I guess.
Yeah, I get it.
To do that. Mm-hmm. And because that would have been a terrible thing to, I just remember like I was in the woods because back behind my house, there's like just an ocean of trees and whatnot. And there was a place where like there was like an outcropping of stone, and it was probably about 40 feet. And I just remember being at the top of the precipice and looking down and saying, that's probably not enough to kill me. And like, I probably shouldn't do that because I wouldn't die. So thankfully I chickened out. Thank God I chickened out. And it was about that time that there was some Christian men that came into my life. You know, God basically just orchestrated these people who weren't perfect. And by no means did they have everything figured out. But they basically kind of like showed me what true Christianity was. And they asked the question, who was Jesus? And at that point, I mean, you know, it's like you occasionally go to church, you occasionally hear this mentioned on some historical channel, history channel, what have you. But there was no like, really like, okay, Jesus is God or this or that. I had no idea. So that question that confronted me was like, who do you think Jesus is? Or who do you say Jesus is? And that question really bugged me because I didn't have an answer for that at that time. And then like, I remember going to, I was in a kind of like a multi-level internet marketing thing. As I was going to these, they have like basically kind of like rallies where everybody in the multi-level marketing thing get together and they kind of like hoopla and celebrate their victories and things like that. And then they'd have a non-denominational Christian worship service on Sundays. And I remember going to those and like something, which was the Holy Spirit, but at the time I didn't know what it was, saying, you know, whenever he would invite people to come forward at the invitation, there was something that just kept testifying to me. You haven't done that. You need to do that. You need to do that. And it took years. It wasn't just like I experienced this and therefore I jumped at it. It took time. I was stubborn, you know, and over, I'd say probably about 6 months to a year roughly, because that time adds up fairly quick. I finally actually was like, no, this is what I need to do. And I surrendered. And it's crazy because I can still remember, even though it was like 17, 18 years ago, something like that, roughly, I think. I mean, I can still remember like just the veil, like it felt like a literal veil was removed from my eyes. And like for the first time, I could just kind of like really think clearly. I don't know how to describe it other than like there was a fog over my mind. And as soon as I surrendered to that, it's like it just dissipated. That fog dissipated. And
I've heard it explained. Some people say they felt like the weight of the world comes off their chest, or suddenly they realize like, I'm a sinner. Like it's like all of a sudden for them, they're like, oh, I'm a sinner. It hits them, you know? Yeah. So I've heard that. That's very common, what you're talking about. Sure.
And you know, it was just an amazing experience. And I was like, wow, this is objectively happening, not just in my mind, but this is happening like outside of my mind, if that made sense. And so, you know, like I surrendered to Jesus. asked him to, forgive me of my sins and, embrace the cross, embrace, the new life and things of like that. And I went home, and I would say 2 weeks of going home, I woke up to the sound of an explosion. My mom, to this day, we never knew why, don't understand why, but she took and poured gas on a fire. And when she did, the flame traced back and ignited and blew up on her. And it burned 40% of her body, second and third degree burns. She lived 2 weeks after that. And then after that, she passed away. She got an infection and she passed away. And at that time, I was doing one-on-one discipleship with, because I, new believer. I go home, I get plugged into a church, and that's kind of like the first kind of like steps. We're like, let's help you grow in your faith. Let's mature and things. And then that happened with where my mom had that accident. And then 4 months later, I come home from getting groceries, and I find my dad on the kitchen floor, massive heart attack. And he passed away on the way to the hospital. And, it was those moments, although they were hard, they were redefining, and it was a game changer in so many ways, because life, my world that I knew was over, because not over in the sense of, but everything that I knew, everything I was familiar with.
Sure.
It sounds pretty much like the world that I knew was over applies, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, processing that, and then not even a couple weeks after that happens, my brother and I, of course, he lost his dad and he lost his mom just like I did. And we have a falling out. And essentially I get in my car, I have 2 big old trash bags full of my clothes, and I hit the road. Thankfully my grandmother took me in, and but I basically didn't have a place to stay because, we, like I said, we had a falling out. And then I went to live with her. Thankfully she had room for me, and I lived there. And it was at that time I had, the one-on-one discipleship going on. I was going to church, and then it was like when I moved in with my grandmother, it was like I was able to really focus. Like, there was so much going on at the house where I lived at before I was kicked out or left or whatever. And I couldn't focus. I couldn't grow, if that makes sense. And then whenever I left and I went to go live with my grandmother, it was like I just was able to tunnel vision. Okay, I went to work, I came home, and I read my Bible. And it was because I got to read my Bible. It wasn't you need to read your Bible. It's Bible. It's I want to read it. I want to understand. I want to grow. And I had this yearning to understand and to grow and mature and ask the questions of why. And that was one thing that Terry, the man who was my pastor and really in a lot of ways a spiritual father in my life, he really cultivated that. Hey, check out this book. Hey, look at this. Read this. And it was every time I finished a book, he gave me a book. And I'd finish that book and he'd give me another book. And it just, just kept on going and building. Or we'd go to an apologetics conference or something like that helped me grow in my understanding of what Christianity really was versus what it wasn't. And that helped me tremendously get my undergirding, so to speak, of what I believe and why do I believe it. And then fast forward a couple of years from that is I met Carrie in 2008. Carrie is my wife, but at the time she wasn't a believer, and but she was seeking, And I just remember I gave her a book, like it was like 10 Most Common Objections to Christianity or something like that by Alec McFarlane, something like that, or Alex McFarlane. And she devoured it in a day. And I was like, whoa, okay, this is a game changer, because a lot of times, you don't see people that hungry.
Never. Like, you give it to a book and you'll never get the book back and they're not going to talk anymore. So that must have been really awesome.
Yeah, it was great. And then like I was playing it kind of like safe, like, okay, you're not a believer, I am. We need to kind of keep this separate, we need to, kind of keep this formal, keep this space, whatever. And then she's like, I want to go to church with you. Like, called me. Can I come to church with you? And I was like, yes, you can.
You sure can, lady.
Yes, you can. And moving forward, a couple of months down the road from that, she made a rededication to the Lord. And it was just an amazing thing to see, like, just because I was being obedient, like, God opened up this door and Carrie was able to join, so to speak. And then, like, we dated for like 2 years, and like before when she became a Christian, I was like, one of the first conversations that we had was like, I don't date to date, I don't date for anything, I date for marriage. I was like, this is what it's about. I'm about that. And she's like, okay. Which, at that time, at that age, I was like 24, 25. So for someone to say, okay, yeah, I'm about that. It's like, that's...
Yeah, I mean, Sarita's husband told her that he loved her on the first date. And they got married 3 hours later. No, I'm just kidding. It wasn't that soon.
3 days. Just kidding.
No, anyway.
But no, that's cool. And well, I mean,
we've taught our children all that same question. Don't date just to date. Date is it's a application for marriage.
Mm-hmm. And that was my belief. That was my idea. I was like, that is what I want to do, because so often marriage is a secondary thing, and a lot of times it's, oh, let's mess around or let's do this. And I was like, no, we're not doing that. And I believe the Lord honored that and brought Carrie into my life, and she just grew like by leaps and bounds. I mean, Carrie, she's a very intelligent, articulate girl, and she loves the Lord, and we both just pursued our education. I worked on my associates and really rediscovered my love for writing, which later comes into effect with you. And
his love for me, he meant.
Yeah, my love for Rick.
Why are you laughing, man?
I'm not laughing. I'm crying. It's tears of.
He's laughing on the inside.
Tears of joy. Tears of joy.
Yeah, tears of joy. All right.
Right.
But so, I finished up my degree, my little associate's degree, and Carrie pursued a bachelor's, and then she went on for her master's. And
it's not a little associate's degree, because most people don't have one.
Yeah.
Oh,
it's more of a mid-sized associate's degree.
Well, he's kind of mid-sized.
I'm just kidding. No, it's an accomplishment,
that
man. You got an associate. Yeah, you got an associate.
My feelings. I'm just saying.
Be proud. Be proud of it. It's awesome.
But so yeah, I rediscovered my passion for writing, and been writing ever since. And whether or not it ever becomes anything more than what it already has, I love it. I would do it every day. I do it every day whenever I can, as much as I can. So, and then after 9 years of marriage, the Lord saw fit to bless me and Carrie with a healthy baby boy.
Yep.
So that's
it's an amazing story in and of itself.
Oh,
let
me tell you. Okay,
let's hear it.
So back in 2015, I was at a friend's house, and this is the show kind of like my attitude of like how I was with kids. Okay. So there was a lady who had just had a baby, and she tried to hand me her child. And I ran. Like, literally ran. Like, she tried to hand me the child. I was on the porch. I literally jumped down the stairs and ran away. That's not like, if you like, her name is Amanda. That was at her house. She can tell you, oh yeah, I remember that, because he ran. And that was literally what happened. I literally ran.
So were you afraid of holding a baby, or you just didn't want any kids?
Both.
You did. Oh, okay.
It was.
Was it a really ugly baby?
No. I mean,
Oh.
kid. I mean, I don't really remember, honestly.
No
but-
babies are ugly, Rick.
That's a lie. I call them ugly all the time. Of course, they can't talk back. So
No, you say they're precious.
yeah,
Bless your heart.
Bless your heart. They're so precious.
God love 'em.
God love that ugly baby.
He does loves that
Well,
ugly
we're
baby.
all going to hell.
Jesus loves the little children, even the ugly ones.
Right. Especially the ugly ones.
Especially.
They need extra love.
So you didn't want kids, and you were afraid of them, and you were just done.
Yeah, I mean, like it wasn't even up for debate. Carrie was of the same opinion.
So is
Oh,
that?
wow.
Can I ask a question? Is that because of the way you were brought up, your parents?
It could have been, I mean,
I recognize that.
yeah, I mean, delving into psychological issues that I probably still have to some extent, it could very well be that was some of the things, growing up and things experiencing and things like that. I was just not around kids, didn't want kids. Carrie didn't want kids. Her backstory on that was before she met me, before she was a believer, she actually had 2 abortions. And God had to basically just do a miraculous work in her life because she just had this guilt that she it was hard for her to describe it, but she had this guilt that she had for having those abortions. Like, a lot of times people don't think about, I try to see if I can't say this properly and articulate it properly. Like, a lot of people who fight for abortions never have one. And so they don't know the ramification, like the physical, emotional trauma from that. And there's no help for those ladies who have those issues. It's literally, they provide that service for those mothers, and that's it. That's all. And there's no counseling, there's no support, there's no anything. You're just left to fend for yourself.
Yeah, which is where Sarita steps in, right? Yeah, Sarita, that's what she does, actually.
I counsel women who've had abortions.
Okay. Well,
But it wasn't, but
Yeah.
you're right. In most cases, when you say,
But I had to get to that point. Like, I was in the same boat. I had one at 17, didn't want children, didn't feel like I deserved them because I was so hurt. And I totally relate to Carrie in that way because I ruined my chance.
Yeah.
Why would I get another?
And that was actually one of the things that that she had to deal with when she first found out she was pregnant with Calvin, our son. There was that voice, and we all know what that voice was, that said, "Oh, you don't deserve to be a mother. You killed your first 2 children." And she got the proper help. It was an awesome lady who was there to help support and educate Carrie and things like that, and help walk her through her pregnancy and stuff like that. So it was really just God moving in multiple ways through that, and then next thing you know, we're parents, and here we are 2 years later.
and I got to be honest with you. I've seen your baby on Facebook. That is a stunning baby, and I'm not kidding.
Rick knows babies.
Listen, I know an ugly baby, and that baby is gorgeous. That is the cutest little thing I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, he's got the reddest hair
He does.
and the bluest
eyes.
The
It's just,
bluest eyes.
yeah, he's precious.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Man, when you start talking about Carrie and like the way that I met you, of course, I can't. Did you come to Stillwater's? I think I met you at the theater.
Yeah. So what happened was Carrie went to Church in Motion. Well, Carrie and I both went. I say Carrie. It's me and Carrie.
Right.
We went to Church in Motion, which was where Tabitha Baracus
Oh yeah.
went to church also.
She got married.
Yeah.
He's a Bachschwein or something now, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Or Bachschwein.
And so to support her her project that she helped out you guys with, we went and saw the movie. And I had self-published a Christian fiction book at that time, self-published. Basically wasted $1,000 because it just got published and then it sat there.
It only takes one person to get saved for that not to be a waste of money.
True, and that could be the case.
And you may never know.
Well, true.
Yeah.
On this side of things, I will not know.
Right.
He's proud of himself because I've never seen anybody.
You've got to explain it to the audience because they don't know what's up.
So, all right. So with a mic, like when there's a room full of people and somebody's to your left, if you look left, you will sound like this. Right? Because the mouth bit doesn't point at the mic bit. And it's like it sounds simple, but it's actually like people don't get it. They mess it up all of the time. And he's one of the few people I've explained that to once, and he instantly was like, oh, I have to make sure to put the mic in between me and the person I'm looking at. So if the person is to your left, you have to move to the right and look across the mic at that person in order for the sound to not go completely wonk.
I know, and it's so
and he's
awesome.
he keeps doing it because he's really proud of himself because he's like, I got this.
When he's talking to Ralph, it reminds me of Luke Skywalker in the back of the Millennium Falcon. Remember when he's like, it's awesome. He's going around that. You'll just have to Google that, kids.
Yeah.
So
Hey, there's new stuff out.
there is. So you
See what I did there?
excellent.
Oh, let's see if I can reach and pat you
So
on the back.
you wrote a self-published Christian book, and then where you go from there?
Yeah. So that basically flopped, but in so doing, we went to the showing, and there was a verse that you had mentioned in the scripture. I can't remember what it was, but it was one of the scriptures you used in Stillwaters, and Carrie that morning had read that same scripture.
Right. That's right. I remember that now.
Yeah.
Because you guys walked up, and then she was like, I was studying that scripture this morning. Mm-hmm. Yes.
And then Tabitha was like, oh, hey, by the way, he's a writer. And then we exchanged information, and then that started the ball rolling.
Yeah, because I have these ideas. Like I have a core idea of why I wanted to make the film, but I'd lack the skills of writing it out and like making it happen.
Yeah, I would not. I would not have any idea.
So like when I went to James Newman, I was like, hey, I need this. James, these writers, they're prolific. You don't realize how good they are. Like, hey, I need this. And it was like 2 days later, it's like, here you go, but Zach was like in 30 minutes is what it felt like, because I was like, hey, Zach, write this. And it was like the next day, okay, here's the entire film. I mean, it really was amazing how much, I guess it just flowed right out of you there. But, but funny enough that it created this dialogue between me and Carrie because Carrie was telling her life story. Mm-hmm. Maybe we need to have her on here too and let her tell her.
Yeah,
her testimony.
Assuming, I don't know why she wouldn't, but obviously it's if she comes, like I had to stay home with the baby. So,
yeah,
or bring the baby.
You can bring the baby. We can take pictures and put it on the website.
You don't run no more, right, Zach? You don't run from babies no more.
No,
Right?
no, at least not my own. Yeah. No one's handed me a baby that's not mine.
That's post-COVID. Nobody's handing you a baby now.
Yeah, that's right.
That's just what they do. Here, hold my baby. And I don't know why.
Yeah.
I never did that.
You never did that?
No.
Zach and Carrie have a very unique place in my own personal testimony too, though. You see, because when I was writing Witch, after Stillwaters, like you're making a horror film and calling it Christian. That's a little odd. So most people are like, heretic, but that's not what it was. Like I had a vision of what I was trying to put out. And so when we're going into Witch, we're dealing with atheism and we're dealing with witchcraft and like we're trying to build a story and having a Christian in the midst of it. And how do they respond to the different things? And so I became so hyper-focused on the film that I was losing sort of track of my own faith. You see what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
And so Carrie was writing this script about her life, and she called it Under the Needle Box.
Yeah.
And as we were just about done with it. Like we were right at the end, and I was like, okay, so I had actually got Park Ridge had signed on to allow us to film in the hospital, and we had everything lined up. And she came up and she was like, "You can't make my film." And I was like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Like, how in the world can you tell me? Like, I've poured all this energy and got all this stuff going on. What do you mean? And she was like, I'm sorry. I can't. The Lord the Lord's not letting it loose. Like, he's not letting it loose. You need to change. There's something about you that needs to change. And I'm like, what are you talking about? It took me a couple of weeks, man, because at first I was really mad, but then it really, like, it hit me. And I remember I went to the altar at Hooper's Creek, actually, over it. And she was right. I was like, wow, I've gotten away from this, and I need to remember why I'm doing this, And so it was critical. And then we went on that podcast together, just put it out there with Kim McLeish, and we talked about that on that show. So yeah, you guys have a very important role, because from that point on, I've been perfect every day.
Oh, wow.
He's comparing himself to me is
Serena
all.
did the Jack Black eyebrow thing. That was cool. No, but it did. It helped me. Like, it definitely helped me. So please tell her that.
Yeah,
And if
absolutely.
you listen into the show, Carrie, thank you. Yeah, it was really great sometimes you just you get a mirror shine up in your face. And that's pretty much what you guys did that day, was you just put a mirror in my face, and I was like, okay. And then we went on to finish Witch.
Ugly baby.
That's right. Yeah. I never said I was cute.
Maybe that'd be the name of your next film, Ugly Baby.
Ugly baby. Yeah. Anyway, man. So what are you doing now? You're working and you're writing and you're running from your baby.
Well, I'm not running. Yeah, if I ran from my baby, Carrie would probably drop kick me. This is your responsibility too. So
Right.
So I don't run from my baby. At least, I mean, other than like when I'm chasing him or he's chasing me, but it's playful. So yeah. So I write. Currently, I'm working on fantasy. I like to write fantasy. It's like my favorite genre. I love to read it. Love to write it. Working on it's called Transference, and it's just like a classic adventure fantasy, like a short story. Might self-publish it. I've tried various magazines, and it gets shot down, but that's part of it. So we'll see.
I need to put you in touch with a guy, Balance Rock Media. They are looking for a short story writer to do some short films. Actually, I just thought of that. We need to do that. Very cool.
Okay, I'll do it. Whatever.
Do you guys have any questions for Zach?
Yeah, I do actually. When you're like becoming a believer just within boom right there, and then your mom die, and then your dad die, did you ever question it? Where you're like, oh man, this is I just become a believer. I'm on board here. God, throw me a bone.
I was actually glad I became a believer, because I don't know if I didn't have the Lord at that time I don't know what I would have done.
Got you.
And I think that's how I approached it. Like, I mean, not to say that there wasn't times of sadness and things of that nature, but it's like, because I was fresh new believer. It's like, if I didn't have God right now in this time, I would be a wreck. And I think I realized that at that time.
Okay.
Yeah.
I
Do you
think
still-
you go one way or the other right there.
Yeah.
Like you get stronger and be like, yep, you're in charge. You're doing this. You know what's going on.
Yeah.
So here's my life.
Do you still speak to your brother, or are y'all speaking now?
We have reconciled. Of course, he kind of follows the path of my parents, and that's a whole separate story that we won't go into. But some people you just have to love from afar, and he's an example of that. Still love him, still care about him, still pray for him, but he just purposely distanced on his end.
I prayed for my brother for 6 years
Yeah.
until he came to Christ. 6 years. Don't give up.
Yeah.
Same with my brother. I prayed for him for years and years and years, and he got sober, and it's been like 15 years, and he's got 2 kids and has a great job. So it can happen.
Thanks.
Yeah. Same with my sister, actually. She was a meth addict, and she was an alcoholic, and she had lost her children, and it was bad. And I'd been praying for her for a long time, and we had a revival. It wasn't a planned one. It was like one of those that just like started happening. And I called her and I said, you should come. And she did. And she was the only person in the whole church that was wearing a red dress. I'll never forget it, because it just really stood out. And at the end of the ceremony, he didn't even have an altar call. She just went. he hadn't got to it yet. She just went, and she's never been the same since. I mean, her children are saved and baptized, and they love the Lord. Like it's amazing. It's so awesome to see what can happen with people. But what Billy said earlier is right. Like, we had a guest on here, Janice, that talked about how her brother died, and then she, instead of staying in church and holding on to the Lord, she went the opposite direction for like 17 years. To the point where she was going to kill herself, and then had a radical change. So. Man, well, it's so nice to see you. I'm so glad you came here.
Yeah.
Please tell Carrie I said hello and that she's got a really beautiful baby. You guys have a beautiful baby.
Yeah.
And I can't say that about everybody's, but I'll say that about yours.
Appreciate it.
But anyway.
All emails to Rick Welch.
Yeah, that's right. But before we wrap it up, I want you to tell me a little bit. You're doing a podcast too now.
Yeah.
And I think it's Active Christian Thought.
It's Achieving Christian Thought.
Achieving Christian Thought.
Yeah, actpod.com.
Yeah, ActPod.
And we just talk about like anything and everything. Like one of our first episodes, we dealt with like the problem of suffering and does God exist when suffering and things of that nature. The topics vary from whatever to whatever.
Yeah, I just got through episode 9, and you guys release like 2 episodes every other week or something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah. Well, talk to the guys on your podcast and ask them if you'd like. I'd be happy to put a link on our website linking to y'all's podcast too.
Absolutely.
Our listeners, I've had people say, can you put out more content? And the answer is no, I can't afford it. And so we're only going to put out 1 a week. That's just the way it is. Unless Andy gives me a super break. Nope.
Yeah, you can't get Ralph to show up anyway, as it
bills,
is.
bro. No, in all honesty, I don't have time to do more than that. So what we did was we linked Marcus Hall, and it's getting clicks from our website. So if you guys would like to be on it, just talk to them and then get back to me. Just keep in mind, we do explicit content here. This is not a true Christian podcast. We study the Bible. And we talk about it, but we're all, we're having conversations about it, speculating.
Right.
So if you want to keep it clean, don't attach yourself to our website.
Well, and that's the thing.
For another opinion, click here.
Yeah. If you want to hear something more pure, go to their podcast.
We talk about interesting stuff. Like the last recording we did last week was on the Heavenly Council. Mm-hmm. And what is that? And
like the Divine Council?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. We
just talked about that.
Yeah, we did the Divine.
That's kind of interesting.
It is really cool.
And then, we also do like bios and stuff like that. But yeah, so, we love it. It's fun.
That's awesome. I'm glad you're doing it. So, yeah, talk to them and find out, if they want to be on an R-rated website. No, I'm just kidding. No, but if they want to have a link, we have a podcast link where the guys can, people can go. And if they want to move on from our content, on a long 12-hour drive, they might want to go somewhere else because, you don't want to hear me talk all day. Jeez. Ask my wife. Anyway, Zach, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it. And again, tell Carrie I said, hey, ask her if she'd like to be on the show. I'd love to hear her testimony too. Sure. I don't know her testimony.
Right.
I only know a little bit, so I'd love to hear it. Billy, thanks for being here. Ralph, so glad you're back. Are you going to be on the next episode?
I will.
Yep, because we're recording it in 2 minutes. And then Andy, Sarita, Cherry, thanks, guys.
Did I say I got to go?
Yeah. Before I let everybody go, if you've listened at the top of this podcast, that we have a different intro. You heard Sarita's voice on it, and you also heard a very cool little donkey laugh at the very end. And know that jackass wasn't Billy.
It was Rick.
So anyway, I want you guys to hear.
Kind
My
of freaky.
sweet donkey's being replaced.
Yeah. We have, there is a donkey on TikTok, and his name is Monty, and the TikTok channel is called Monty the Singing Donkey. And I just happened across it one day. And if you're ever having a bad day and you just need a pick-me-up, I'm not even going to tell you a joke. I'm just going to let you hear this. I reached out to the owners. They're out of Texas. And I reached out to the owner and I said, this donkey just brought me so much joy. And I would like to be able to use that hilarious singing laugh as when we tell our hideous dad jokes, to be the laugh, but we're also putting it on our intro. And they gave us permission and they said, spread all this donkey joy that you want. Then I was like, cool. So I'm going to play. This is what it sounds like. And I hope you guys like it.
Hey, Monty.
And no, that is not the sound of my grandfather going to the bathroom.
And now I don't like the donkey anymore.
Yep.
No,
you
but
ruined
seriously, guys, look for Monty the singing donkey and follow that page. Every morning she opens that door and it is absolutely hilarious. And she's got all these cameras around the farm where like the donkey's chasing the horse and like it's so much fun, you know. This world can chew you up and spit you out. It's nice to see some simple little farm animals just having fun, you know.
So can I ask, were you doing your TikTok dance? And that's how you saw Monty?
You know, honestly, I'd never been on TikTok. Andy sent me a couple, and I finally just said, fine, because he says that we get all our learnings from TikTok, you know?
We do.
That's where the kids get all their learning.
TikTok will teach you a lot about yourself, too, if you're paying attention to what shows up in your feed. It really will.
Yeah, or you look at the clock and it's 2 a.m.
Well, that too, but I mean, if your TikTok is full of that stuff's just a learning algorithm. If you get on TikTok and you get mad, man, it's just giving you the stuff you've been asking for.
And I don't, all mine's are like funny farm animals and ugly babies and like, not kidding. Like, no, but there's this guy on there, like he has all these hacks, like life hacks, and he does like.
There's a lot of really cool stuff.
Like he makes like cool stuff with like at home things or like cleaners, like special ways to clean anything, the dishwasher, like all those little tips and tricks. He does all kinds of cool stuff, you know, so I get sucked into that one. So anyway.
Did you ever see the guy that does the very human inventions?
No.
He's like very human. It's he does things like special alarm clocks that involve like beds that like throw you or something. It's always like the worst inventions
I'd like one of those.
demoed with like, you know, human-sized dolls that always get just completely murdered.
No, I am following this funny family. They prank each other, but only in this one particular way. They hang these water balloons like in weird places in the house.
Yeah.
Have you seen that?
Yeah, I've seen
it's like a mom, a dad, and a little girl, and like they'll like
shoot something.
Yeah, they'll shoot something at them, and then they dodge it, and then all of a sudden the water will hit them, and then they do this blast cannon of confetti on them, and it's random, like anywhere. It's so funny.
Yep.
Anyway, well, thanks everybody for listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and we will talk to you next time on the Burrows of Berea.
They don't breathe
they
well.
can't breathe.
Yeah.
And so anyway, Friday I took her out, and it was really weird. I went to bring her in, and she just laid down in the yard. And I was like, that's weird, Millie. Like, what's going on? And so I actually had to pick her up and take her in the house. And then I went to work. And, of course, that's the one day the girls get out of school early, and they found her. So anyway, she pretty much passed away when I left to go to work. And she just laid in the floor like she was taking a nap. Just a little. She pooped just a little. It doesn't look like she suffered or anything.
Wow.
She had a coughing episode right before I took her out, so I'm assuming I don't know. It was just weird. She really declined quick in the last couple of weeks, but
Her final act of love was to just go while you were gone.
Boom, that's it.
I thought you were going to say poop on the floor.
No.
Poop on the floor.
That's kind of where I thought that was going to.
Exactly.
She didn't Amber Heard him or
Yeah,
anything.
and it was the last day of school. She always enjoyed going to school with us. She'd ride in the school. So the last day of school, last ride, blah blah. You know, it's just. But anyway,
That's
the girls.
sad.
Yeah, the girls were. You know, they were heartbroken.
Oh, yeah, I bet.
We buried her in the yard. I made a little cross and a little wooden tombstone.
Bulldogs are super, are nice dogs. I mean,
they're
every bit as
awesome.
Stone-headed as people say they are, but they're just sweet and fun and like play, very playful dogs.
Own personality. Just, she was the easiest dog ever. She slept more than a cat. I mean, it was,
All three of my dogs are like that, and one of them's only like 2.5. I'm like worried about them.
so. But anyway, what's up, Ralph?
How you doing there, Mr. Kimsey?
Fantastic.
Ralph, this is Sarita. Sarita, he actually exists.
He does. Hi.
It was very expensive to get
Do you
this
remember
actor in.
Zach, Ralph?
Yes. How you doing?
How you doing?
Hey, how you doing?
Wait, how you doing?
Yeah, there you go.
How you doing?
We
Very
went
nice.
around there. Hey, hey.
That was nice.
That was.
I
nice.
approve.